Is it working? Does it turn when it comes to me? I don't see it. It's feedback.
But I hear, oh, it's picking up now. It's a little slow.
Feebly moving.
Yep,
All right.
that's what it's gonna do the whole meeting.
Right.
Okay, so Lynn,
Yeah,
you are live and you are on the website.
okay, thank you. Like that, it's coming from the, or it's not coming from that owl.
Keep going.
Yeah. Like, how is it picking up?
It's coming from. Could it be this thing? It's not different. Is that it?
Now I gotta go mute it. I don't know.
No, Lynn.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, it's
Hello?
this device. I don't understand.
So there's a presentation laptop that we have in Zoom, but it's not our presentation.
It's a presentation on a copy of the sheet itself. Is there anything else?
Yeah, do you mind reading it? Melanie.
Unmuted.
Like, I don't understand.
Is it that computer?
this. Like, I don't want.
Go to output volume up top.
The microphone is blowing on the device. I'm gonna leave this in. Alright. Oh wait, did I just end the Zoom? Wait, I don't know. I just ended the live stream, huh?
I have here BOR Zoom web is up.
So is the Zoom still on?
I think so. It says,
Alright, so Zach, you hear no back audio or anything now on the live stream.
Okay, let me set my phone down over here and then let's.
It's that device. I just can't figure out.
there was the output and then there's input. The input was muted, the output was not muted.
Oh,
Let me see if I can figure that out.
do you mind if I grab a taco?
No, it's written there back.
Something.
No, go ahead, and you're so ready, you try to go back. I already grabbed mine. They might have put some of your stuff on the side, so just take that back, I got mine out. So, you take where we need.
It's really frustrating. And I'm like, I
What's
need
wrong?
Karthik. It's giving us like back audio, but we're live stream. Oh, wait. I need to.
Okay,
All right.
Melanie, did you figure it out? Cause I'm not hearing myself.
I'm not either. I think it was the output and I'm.
Yep.
The output.
Go girl, go. Zach, are you still live?
So I'm talking right now and we're not hearing the back audio like we were a second ago. Y'all just took it.
Hey.
I don't know if I'm gonna.
Good, how are you?
Like, yeah, here on my screen.
No, I did not.
Part of the conversation.
That worked for me.
I guess I didn't.
Technically not on the task force for something, on the process for.
That's meetings, yeah.
How are you?
I need to,
Right. So she's not in the second for. What with you? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Kim is this week. I'm representing today.
Yes. no, you don't have to sign in because you're on the task force, and we have everything in your folder.
How are things with you? Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
You didn't see one?
I'll leave it here.
Yes.
That she's been having fun. I think we're. Well, if not.
Look, they got you and Barry teamed up right here.
If he comes, he has to sit in your lap.
She's she's in our region, so we'll definitely miss it the next one day.
Erica calling you also.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Excited you can hear me. So the insurance, I know we're running a little bit, a couple minutes behind. We'll go ahead and get started. So I am not Secretary Cindy Shallon. I am Secretary Shallon today. But Co-Chair Commissioner Reed and I would like to thank you for attending the third meeting of the Task Force on Career Alignment. We also want to give some kudos to the LSU Foundation for hosting us today in the beautiful building, and particularly to Jesse Downs, the Senior Director of the Owen Career Center at LSU for coordinating this wonderful meeting location for us. I do also kind of want to note that today's meeting is being live streamed. So the cameras are sound activated. So noise or speaking will transition the camera to you. So just a heads up, if you have side conversations or whatnot, the camera will pick up, or the sound in the camera will pick up on that. And you will then be highlighted. Just work your wise there. So to begin our meeting, I'd like to ask for Tim to call the roll.
Commissioner Reed? Here. Mr. Padilla as proxy for Secretary Shallon?
Here.
Senator Edmund?
Here.
Representative Freiberg?
Here.
Ms. Kingham? Here. Ms. Cheatham? Here. Mr. Knapp?
Here.
Dr. Brumley?
Here.
Mr. Bro as proxy for Angie White?
Here.
Dr. Calais as proxy for Dr. Dawson?
Here.
Dr. Grant?
Here.
Dr. Wicker?
Here.
Dr. Bob? Here. Dr. Turner? E.O. Johnson as proxy for Dr. Turner? Here. Ms. Dickerson?
Here.
Miss Laverson? Here. Mr. Cassard?
Here.
Mr. Inman?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
And Dr. Procopio?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Kim. So now we will ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the September 4th, the previous meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Dr. Reed, second.
Mary Beth?
Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passed. Thank you all.
Thank you. As a reminder, our focus, as you all know, in our first meeting at BRCC was from the lens of the employer's needs. We hosted an engaging panel with industry leaders, really talked about the workforce needs of Louisiana and the future and how we improve the workforce and talent pipeline for our state. Making sure that we were talking about early engagement with education, career partnerships, and expanding work-based learning to equip students with foundational skills and technical skills so that they can hopefully align with industry needs and stay right here and thrive in Louisiana, as I smile at the college students who are here on this panel talking to you. Today, we want to shift our focus a bit and talk about state of the state as it relates to work in higher education. So our hope from this meeting is to frame the initial recommendations that will help us to bring a report together in December. You know, we have both an initial report and a full report that this task force is charged to do. So first, we want to ask our birthday guy, Dr. Tristan Bailey, the results. So we and the staff did a survey out to the higher education career services offices with a series of questions. And so we're going to ask Tristan to share that information and go from there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thanks so much for being part of my birthday party today. So what I'm going to do quickly is just kind of go through that survey. Huge thank you to Melinda Baker and to all my folks for getting this out to everybody. And a huge thank you to all the institutions for their willingness to provide all this information. We did work with all of the 28 public institutions, but also Lakeview institutions as well. So altogether, we have 35 institutions that provided this information. Just like every other survey that I think I've ever been part of, the answers actually ask more questions than they provide, or perhaps ask as many questions than they provide. There's certainly places that I'm going to reach where I'm going to say, well, we wish we'd ask this a little bit differently, or now this asks us to ask other questions. What's nice is we're going to have some 4 panelists who are full representatives of the people who put this together in the first place. And so some of these things we will be able to get a little bit more granular information. All of the slides I'm about to show you are in your packet today, and I believe also this sort of more detailed summary of exactly what all the what the kinds of things that we've heard. We do, of course, have all of the institution by institution responses, and those tell a different story again. But just like always, when you take information and you kind of collate it, it tells a slightly different story than when you look at it institution by institution and read through that picture. I think maybe before I even start, the way in which all of this reads is that in so many ways, students think of the Career Services Center like they think of the Student Health Center. So this is a place that you can go if you need to, and it's available when you need it. And that some people use it a lot, and some people don't use it quite as much. And the people who need to use it aren't necessarily the people who should use it, and the people who don't use it aren't necessarily the people who should. That makes any sense. So that's kind of the general common theme that we will hear over and over. And largely speaking, our career advising centers are staffed in that way. They are staffed, provisioned on campuses in a way which assumes that students will use the services when they need to, but there will be students who do, and there will be students who do. And now we go back. No. So let me see if I can make this image.
Yeah.
Somewhere or other, there's something.
There we go.
on the slides. There we go. So first of all, we asked campuses, do you have a career center? You can see that roughly speaking, 4/5 of the campuses who came through said they did, and 1/5 said they didn't. Even there, which is question one, it's already the case that what we saw was some of the people who said no, it doesn't mean that their campuses don't have any advice for students. It just may be that they don't think of it as a career services office. Maybe they label it in a different way. Maybe they think of themselves functioning in a different way. So it is, please don't go away thinking that there's, a 5th of the campuses who don't have these student services. It just may well be that they think of that under a different label. Does your institution currently have a career service? Why should I not go forward? Well, then maybe you can just push this.
Yeah. I did want to feel like I was DJing, so I would fulfill that.
So, yeah, so is the career readiness is it embedded in the strategic plan? And again, you can see about 4/5, currently not exactly the same 4/5, and what we see in the more granular information, that when it is embedded, it's embedded in all kinds of different ways. And so we have institutions that engage with their alums, that engage with employers. We have campuses that have embedded career advising into their QEP. So all of our institutions now in the state are accredited by SAC COC. As part of that accreditation process, they have to each time come up with a special area of focus that will be their area of specific focus for 5 years to improve student success. That's their QEP. We have several institutions that do that. We have, of course, ways in which that has been sort of career readiness is sort of privileged in their strategic plans being a strategic priority. Campuses that are trying to build their whole curriculum around making sure that people are appropriately prepared. So there's a whole variety of different ways that people are including that in their strategic plan, but certainly for this specifically say that. So I know many of you are asking, well, do we require it? Because I don't know about you, but there's an old adage out there that people don't do option.
Right.
And the reality is that people don't do option. And so here we are, when we ask, is it required to engage with career services? It's a 50-50. Now, immediately, I hope that you're thinking to yourself, what does it even mean to if we were to require it, what would that even mean? And what would we require? And these are exactly the kinds of things that I think we're hoping to exactly hit on in our interim report, what will we do in the term of the year. And then, of course, will in many ways be the focus of the next year's work. So describe the requirements. So those half of them that do require it, what do you mean by requiring it? So you can see, again, that we have campuses that kind of require it as part of the capstone kind of experience, that they have welded it to various different kinds of curricular integrations. Very often the campuses are including it in a first year kind of engagement. So this is a common theme you'll see often, that first year experience course, which is common to many campuses, career advising, or at least letting campuses and institutions, the students know, here are the services we provide, this is where you can go to get them, this is how you would go about doing that, is very often a component of that first year advising experience. And of course, also some kind of professional development experience, allowing students to have some more in-depth kind of experience. So again, a wide variety of engagements. So when did it start? On the next slide. So again, most institutions say that they encourage that engagement in the first year. I think what we often see is that it doesn't so often happen in the first year. Their students do in fact know that it is available in the first year, but often, and we'll see this on some later slides, it often tends to be that upperclassmen are more common visitors to avail themselves of those services. Certainly, many of them recognize that they have a targeted approach to making sure that students go there. So at-risk students sometimes encouraged to meet with their career coaches earlier than their peers. And we can think through the thinking, the thinking behind that. Maybe this is something that we can explore with the panelists later. Sure, as I say, a few institutions acknowledge that that it's more often juniors and seniors who show themselves in career thinking. How are students encouraged to engage? So again, we made it clear that students are introduced to the career centers as part of student orientation, US 101, freshman orientation, those kinds of things. Faculty sometimes do embed career services into their courses themselves. That often is going to vary institution to institution, subject area to subject area, sometimes even faculty member to faculty, just depending on how they structure their course. We have institutions that certainly have workshops, job fairs. I know one of our panelists today may well from the river parishes talk about the event that they have on their campus, which so really try to introduce students to employers that were in their area, and some speed dating kinds of interviewing, allowing students to really show off what they learned to potential employers. So there's again a wide variety of those different kinds of engagements, targeted outreach, partnerships, again, a wide variety of ways, just as you might imagine, that students are encouraged to engage and do. So, sorry, yes, ma'am.
Could I ask a question? Maybe I missed it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Who was part of this survey? What was the demographic? Was it all 4 year? Was it 2 year, 4 year?
Thank you
Was
so
it,
much for that.
how many students were involved? I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
So these surveys were filled out by institution, by campus. So they were filled out.
But is it 4 year, just 4 year or 2 year?
2 year and 4 year. So we have, in the state, we've got 14 2-year institutions, public institutions, and then another 14 4-year institutions, the 28 public institutions altogether. And as well as that, we also have the private institutions.
So private is included in
Also
this?
included, yes, ma'am,
So there would be one for every institution we have.
for 35 institutions.
Okay. That makes it clear.
It's the last page of your summary doc, has every institution.
Yeah,
If you're the-
so it's interesting how you know whether a student knows that a career center exists or whether a university filling this out would know whether a career center exists. Because you said that 20%, maybe they had one and they just didn't know they had one, they called it something else?
Oh, by that, what I meant was, so on that, at that institution, it may be that, you know, you can imagine when you're filling out
Yeah.
a survey, and it says, do you have a career office? And you might think to yourself, well, we don't have a career office, but we have an office called the Office of Work-Based Learning. Do I check the box or do I not check?
So it's some official at a university filling this out. Thank you.
Dr. Denley, when was the survey sent out?
It was over the
September
last.
5th, and it was asked to be completed by September 24th. Don't know why I
over the
remember
last-
weird dates.
If you have other questions, just yell at me, I'll get on a roll. So, moving tack from the just straight up career advising to work-based learning, we asked, do any programs at your institution include a work-based learning requirement? Again, you can see, you know, about 5, 6 years, you said what they did. Ask, do you have any programs? And then on the next page, we get a little bit more granularity about what kinds of things those are. So we have programs like nursing, allied health, education. Those are all programs that actually work-based learning is just an integral part of the curriculum itself, right? You don't get graduated as a nurse unless you go through some kind of clinical practice. You don't graduate as a teacher unless, in this state, you've been through a full year's teaching, so in-service training. So those are disciplines where it is pretty common, in fact, the requirement that you've been through some kind of work-based learning. Those would have been included in this. I want to say a big thank you to Strada. We actually have some representatives again from Strada today, and there's the one with Kevin Grubb. So Strada has actually generously supported a project, the Board of Regents. We have 19 degree programs across a dozen institutions in the state who have not in the past had some kind of a work-based learning component. And they have redeveloped the curriculum of that program to require a work-based learning experience. So this is not programs like this, programs that habitually have always had that as an integral part. These are also not programs where they're saying, yeah, you know, that's an option you can do if you want. They're instead deliberately redesigning the program to incorporate the work-based learning experience as an intentional part of the curriculum itself, which is, I think, a very, very different approach. So some of those would have been in here and those would have been tagged too. Of course, again, there's a big difference between paid and unpaid, and I'm sure we will hear much of that. I do want to give a big shout out to work that we're doing specifically in the teaching sector to make that in-service teaching requirement an apprenticeship experience for students. And again, I think that's there's very few states in the country, and that's a fact right now. And I know we are working very hard to make it a scale here in our state. Again, sometimes those internships, apprenticeships, co-ops are credit bearing. In other words, they are an integral part or are allowed to be counted towards what the requirements of your degree. Sometimes they're not. In the program that we're working with Strada, we've asked those campuses to actually redesign that program so they are an integral part. Of course, they are an integral part for nursing, education, and allied health. But again, thinking through the difference between that experience when it's completely optional and above the requirements of your degree and when it's actually built into that program. So on the next slide, how are they managed? Again, a really wide variety of that. Institutions certainly have that managed by their career services, but often they are also managed at the institution level or the department level. One advantage that Louisiana has that I think we really can capitalize on is that all of our institutions have Handshake, which is a software platform that really allows students to be made aware of the kinds of work-based learning experiences that are available to them. Employers propose those kinds of opportunities. And on an ongoing basis, I think there is a real opportunity for us to be able to track that data using tools like that in much more effective ways. I do want to say a big thank you to Adam Knapp for championing that over the years, and thank you. So coming to the end of the survey now, does the institution receive feedback from businesses. That was an important aspect of the creation of this task force itself. And you can see that just a little bit more than half of the campuses said that they do on a deliberate and habitual basis get collaborative feedback from businesses, and a little of that feedback is on the next slide too. That they should get consistent feedback from students for professionalism and preparedness, and employers certainly highlight the need for soft skills or durable skills, or however we want to talk about it. And we heard that loud and clear last time too. So lastly, are there any areas that you feel the institution needs support to complete this work? Common theme, I think I kind of showed my hands at the beginning, is just simply inclusion. But as things currently stand, the staffing requirements on campuses are set up in many ways to serve the students in the way that they're currently using the resources, which is on a as needed kind of basis. To serve students on a everybody's using it in a very intentional and everybody using it every day kind of way will require significantly more staffing and resources than we currently have. And I'm not saying reflected on that system. So with that, answer any questions and thoughts about that. As I say, the main event for today is that's a sort of I hope an amused bush where you can get the main course.
Any questions? Yes.
Was it asked at all, or whether career readiness offices are bent toward any employer or an in-state employer? So oftentimes it is, and it might be different for different institutions, but it's
That wasn't a
often.
question that we asked. Certainly, I think terrific question for the panelists to address today, and I'm sure.
Other questions?
Since we're running a little ahead of time, I'm gonna ask. I think it was a great deal of wisdom and foresight to add the student members for this panel, and I think it would be a perfect place to put them on spot. And ask them what has been their experiences. So, did you use it? Did you use it regularly? How did you decide what you were majoring in? Was it like you did it in preschool? You already had it mapped out, or you have several different options, and with the knowledge that these are exceptional students and it's not necessarily your representative, but it is them or their friend group. Tell us about your experience with choosing what you wanted to do and with these career ready services.
Yeah, start things up. Representative State University, particularly Baton Rouge campus, in Baton Rouge, on career services, really relying not necessarily on what I want to know, that's something that from this institution, but they highlight the opportunities available in that field. Whether that be different scholarship, externship, I'm a finance major, and it's ready to be through things such as handshake, with college of business, as well as our career services within itself, to see exactly what those opportunities are. And it lets me work about and job that I feel like SPBR is doing great when it comes to overall promoting that handshake and career that part too. Something I will say, how we can strengthen that is major by major, like the food field by field, because I know some things such as the engineering, nursing, finances are very highlighted. But some of our math communications, major highlighted.
Did you seek out career services, or were you directed to it or required to visit?
Direct. That's from the university, every person that's that skills course and career service highlighted throughout that. So all of our freshmen are legally directed. They're qualified for where career services is, and those opportunities must get highlighted through career services, through college, and then concerning for them.
And to kind of answer what he's talking about, I'm actually teaching that course now. So we just had an assessment where they had to do an assessment and talk about their strengths and weaknesses and actually how much transferable skills. It also had them to do a 30-second elevator pitch that we leverage Canvas. This is all back about the badge. And all of this is embedded into the Canvas. This is a first year experience. Also, he didn't get a chance to highlight. We just had our career fair September 24th. in which they had to develop all the freshmen, they had to prepare a resume, cover sheet. We talked about business, attire, professionalism. We talked about following up and meeting, each employer, how to look them in the eye, how to have a conversation with them, how to finish, and then send an email thanking them for their time. We went through, we also had a chance to follow back up after the career fair. What was the strengths, what did we do well, where do we have room to grow, and where are we missing? We actually found out we're missing a couple of our fashion design. We didn't have real fashion design, so it was heavy engineering, heavy nursing, and so we have to do more inclusive employers. So I really appreciate you brought that out for us.
Great. Thank you. Yes, I'm Avery Larson. She's student life vice president. Our career services are great. Just being directed through classes, or other resources, like this. I actually brought one of our student government representatives here today to kind of speak on his experience, with the Career Center and how that's going to help him. If he can start now or.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Dula. I'm the Assistant Coordinator of Workforce Development. It is, I'll stand, I'm sorry. It is a new role. Basically, it's all about partnering how student government can help the Career Center and how the Career Center can help student government, if that makes any sense. I do believe that the Career Center offers great resources. However, something that we do need to work on is how the students could kind of better engage with those resources, and that's why I chose that role. I think the Career Center is doing well. The Career Center has helped me with my mock interview. The Career Center has helped me with my internship opportunities, and I love it here, to be honest.
Did you get out or did your faculty advise you to go there?
I started out, but they still did advise me to do multiple people. Right. Yeah. Might as well stand up.
So just to clarify, what I heard is that there's the student services office on campus, but then student government is doing something internally, that y'all set up your own office or initiative or something. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay, tell us more about what y'all are doing, because there might be other campuses that will be like, oh, that's cool, let's steal that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah. So one initiative that one of our older student body presidents, Lucy Shaw, came up with was the Tiger Tail Closet Initiative. So we know that some students don't have the resources to potentially seek out professional development higher. So basically, we have a you could say a closet. It's called the Tiger Tail Closet, and you would set up an appointment through Handshake, and you'll basically be able to get 4 items per week, whether it be blazer, tie, pants, or hopefully shoes in the future. So it's a resource that I use. So I think it's a great resource, and I plan on expanding it so that way more students can be more knowledgeable about it. We have a lot of resources, you know, and I just want to be that bridge between the students and the faculty.
Okay. So that's why we started the department this year. We really just wanted to be like that bridge between student service, the career services and student government. We just have a better reach of, we are students, so we know how students feel and we know how to reach them. And so we wanted to partner with the Career Center and just utilizing that and being able to speak for the students, and how that was pushing it. Right, thank you.
Hey, look.
So I didn't know we had a career service. I'm just joking. Like everyone else, they offer a lot, they do a lot. We actually had a job fair today. It's just getting the students involved. So that's the area that me and my team are trying to do. We're trying to make it to where the students want to come, where they're eager to come. So that's why I'm there.
Where are you? Campus?
The South Louisiana Community College.
Francis, Director of Career Services at Community College. So what we find is, like with our technical studies and our nursing and allied health, we have industry-based career fairs. And so our deans drive the instructors pushing the students or making it mandatory that they attend. So we have great buy-in from like our nursing and allied health, our technical studies and STEM. Where we struggle is where we struggle is the career students who are most likely transferring to a four-year college. So they're not as, the buy-in is harder because they're like, well, I have time. So, we do have almost a mandatory process. So like today, we had 200 technical studies students attend the event because we are driving, the deans are driving and they're forcing those instructors to build it into their plan for the semester. Thank you. Chris?
So, my story is a little bit different than Taylor,
This is
Sean,
Naples State University.
or Avery over there. One of the things for us is that there's a lot of focus on that first year. We call it university prep. One of the things we start worrying about is jam packing it too much. So I think that's something we should keep our eye on, being that it is a 1 hour course. And our director of career services is here as well, so you can speak to her. But my story is a little bit different. I didn't really seek out the career service center on campus. I kind of known what I wanted to do, you know. I've known that I was interested in politics since a young age, and I got to know a good friend. And then I got a opportunity in the summer of 24 that I couldn't pass up. And I'm gonna give the shout out because I work for Senator Edmonds over there. So, boss, thank you for trusting in me.
That is called career services.
Mark, yeah.
So, my pathway to this has been a little bit different, but our administration is also committed to making sure that we beef up our career services center. It's something that we recognize that is really important, especially for where we are in Thibodeau, being that, you know, we're mostly a coastal school and we're gonna pump out a lot of jobs in the Gulf and other areas. So we recognize it's something important. We recognize it's something to invest in. And that's why we just invested over $4,000 into our career service center in student government. So my story is a little bit different from them and they're awesome. But I never really utilized the career service center. There's still time, but that's kind of my story. And
Great, thank you. Thank you for having.
No, no. They're doing very, I think interesting. I learned a lot.
Okay, you're gonna push us on.
I'm gonna push this along here. Well, thanks, Dr. Denley, for kind of setting the table here. Similar to what we did the last meeting, obviously, we're gonna set kind of some table stakes and then now actually talk to some folks who are in this space as well. So we've invited representatives from campus offices of career services to share some of their perspectives and aspirations in terms of strengthening the education to career pipeline. So I'll hand it over to Melinda to take it on ahead.
I'm not really gonna be doing the talking, it's really gonna be our institution. As they make their way, we're gonna really just start with introductions. I'm gonna let them speak for themselves. We are doing double serving for Dr. Turner as the Lakeview and then also serving on the panel today.
Yes,
So I will start with the light all fixed idle. In front of you is the survey results, which is also in all of y'all's material as well as the PowerPoint, but I think the spectrum work, but the owl is also very close. So that should be picking up. So I'll let you kick us off. Introduction of your name, your title, your institution, your title. And if you want to briefly, tell us a little bit about how long you've been in this space.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Keto Johnston. I am a Franciscan missionary of Our Lady's University right here in Baton Rouge. And my title is Director of Vocational Discernment and Career Development. I've been in this role for 2 years. However, I've been at the institution for 4 years.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Craig Marinello. I'm the Director of Career Services at Southeastern Louisiana University. I've spent the last 6 years at Southeastern, the last 2 as the Director. Previously, before I came to the education world, I spent many years in for-profit companies, Fortune 500 companies, as Vice President of a bank, and as Regional Director of Catholic Charities on the North Shore of Reagan, Oklahoma.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessie Downs. I'm the Senior Director of the OLEN Career Center here at LSU. I've been at the Career Center for all 19 years of my professional career, and I've been the Director for the last 10.
Good afternoon. I am Kate Whitehead. I am the Director of Work-Based Learning and West Bank Initiatives for River Parishes Community College. I've been in this role for a little bit over a year. I've been in the career success space as the assistant director the year before that. Prior to that, I was in the academic advising space, and before that, I taught at LSU for 13 years and brought my students to Jessie Center. A little bit of a coming home.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for this opportunity. My name is Vonda Taplin. I serve as the Director of Career Services, Southern University at New Orleans. And I've served in this role the last 2.5 years. However, I've been in higher education for the last 15 years or so. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. So this is representation from all four of our system as well as Lake institutions. And I do want to kind of going off of Stephen's great question to our students, which is thinking about early engagement. So I'm going to start kind of the question to y'all of, Dr. Dinley shared out that most of the survey respondents say that there is that early engagement encouraging in that first semester. So I want to hear from you firsthand, what are the strategies that have been most effective for reaching students early? And how do we ensure that students receive strong career counseling early and then sustain that? So I'll let whoever wants to dive in first.
It's best to get them the minute they come on campus. And when I say the minute they come on campus, I'm talking orientation. That's where mom and dad are. That's where things are happening. That's where students are kind of absorbing what is this culture, what am I about to walk into? Who are the other people that are around? They get to engage with people like orientation leaders, with folks like myself and our other panelists who speak at orientations and who engage with these parents and engage with these students. It's the perfect opportunity. Once they enter their freshman year, specifically Southeastern, they all take an SE class, which is through our College of Honors and Excellence. In that class, they get their basics of career preparation. They get them thinking about careers. Obviously, freshmen are thinking about lots of things in addition to careers, but they're also thinking about that career. They're just starting to mold. There are students like Cruz here who know exactly what they want to do, which are possibly the easiest students to deal with on a day-in, day-out basis, because you know where you want to go. It's just a little polish and getting you ready to head in the direction you want to go. The challenge is with students who have no clue. The challenge is with students who consistently want to change majors, who just don't know what they want to do. And honestly, those are the students I want to see the most. The students who are oftentimes first generation and don't have folks at home that can help provide some of those supports that are absolutely critical when you're thinking about what you want to do with your future. We incorporate different strategies for different types of students based on what their needs are and where they're coming from. And so that's vitally important. But one of the core pieces that I know we all try to do, and I've looked through the surveys and things like that, is freshman year, especially nowadays, is getting students used to communicating with adults. Getting them used to recognizing themselves and seeing themselves in the mirror as adults. Because if they were coming from high school into the military, they would be treated like adults. There would be no hand holding, no mom and dad coming to boot camp with them, right? But if they were going into the apprenticeship world, same thing. But when they come to college, for whatever reason, they still hold on to some of that high school naivety or innocence. And in doing that, we oftentimes have parents that will come onto campus and want to engage with us as professionals. And that doesn't help the student prepare. That holds the student back, in my opinion. As a professional who spent 20 plus years in the work world, I know that if a young man or a young woman would have come into my office for an interview and brought mom or dad with them, that would have been a big mistake. How can I have confidence in them when they don't have confidence in themselves? And so there is a chunk of student accountability, but the key is getting them to career fairs, getting to career events early is one of the most useful tools that we have on campus. It is the way that students engage with our employers. It is the way that our employers engage with students. Employers are they're part of the team. And we talk to them about that often. And so we create safe spaces for students to engage, to get used to working with professionals, and everything stems from that.
I think there's a real opportunity to think about not just early engagement as, hey, we have this resource, you should use it, but one thing I'm struck by in the resolution is about the word embedded. And so how do we have conversations about career readiness at orientation that are not
we have a career center, visit their table, they'll give you a laundry list of their services. But how do we engage in the first conversation of, how do you know what you want to do? And you don't need to know, but how do you start exploring? And we start that actually process of having that conversation in large group orientation, small group orientation, and then hand off to the resources there. So I think the embedding piece is real key, because whether we have a named career center or not, every university in the state has career resources. Oftentimes, I think we start off by giving it in a list of all the resources the university has available to support the student and say, use it when you need it. And we know that we need to make it not optional. So how do we embed conversations around exploration, around career readiness, around pathways into the freshman year experience? And we could do a better job in orientation instead of just like resource fair. First year courses, I think one thing we saw, and so how is that spread across the university? I think there are opportunities there for embedding more deeply.
When you say you hand it off to resources, give me an example of what a resource might be, other than you just mentioned a job fair or an aptitude
Sure.
test. What are resources?
We have, at LSU, we have a career and exploration guide. So it's a series of worksheets collected together to help students maybe do an assessment of their values and their interests. And then based on those interests and values, what careers might align with them. And then it might have an informational interview worksheet. So if you know you want to go into politics, that's what you thought. Maybe you have a skewed perception of what politics is, right? Maybe it's just campaigning or it's just legislation, and you need to talk to someone who's had a career in politics. What's the good, the bad, the ugly? What's the context of the work? What skills do you need, et cetera? And so we can begin to give students tools to engage in that exploration, multidimensional, right? Because you can't just read about what does a politician do to understand it. We could make network connections. Perhaps some students don't have a network where they know someone in that field, but we have an alumni network, and we have ways that we can make those connections to begin to introduce, and they can validate their career choice, or at least what they're thinking. So we talk to students about choosing a career is almost like test driving a car, right? If you think about what it is to buy a car, that's an investment. And I don't know very many people that buy a car without test driving it. The investment of a career is much larger than buying a car. And so we need to test drive a little bit. We need to explore. We need to either have an experience that tells us this is not it, or confirms. Maybe we had an internship with the senator and we say, I'm in full throttle. What else do I need to do to achieve this goal? But some people they go to the Hill, they go to the legislature downtown, they say, I don't want to do this. I want to I want to be in PR. I don't want to do that. I want to do this part of it. I want to be in political communication. I don't want to be a politician, Maybe, did that answer?
Yes.
So we discussed the front end of like the career development, but to sustain it, I think we have to address it on the back end as well. So at Brand New, we have 3 schools: health profession, liberal arts, and also our nursing school. So we make sure that we embed career development or vocational discernment throughout their whole matriculation of their programs. So it's deeply embedded in their clinical programs and also non-clinical programs as well. So I think, that will build sustainability as well.
In addition to that, I would say, being that we're trying to keep talent in the state and city, if you will, what we have done, we get on the front end. So a lot of times we will go with the recruiters to different high school fairs to begin recruiting students at an early stage in the high school, and help them understand the opportunities that are in our colleges, particularly at Southern University in New Orleans. So we try to accompany our recruiters to those different high school fairs. And that way they don't really have to look outside of the state of Louisiana, because they know what's available within the state. And offer them those opportunities, and it avoid them having to pay you know, the out-of-state fees and those other fees. And they don't have to seek outside of the state of Louisiana when it comes to seeking out a career path.
I think early engagement is really about bringing careers to the students, not students to the careers to the students. So one of the strategies that we use, we are a very small career success and work-based learning office. You're looking at our office, is actually going into the classroom, partnering with our instructor, having the students get to know us, providing them with those career exploration resources, because quite frankly, at the community college level, our students do not have the time nor the money to change their major 4 times. They need to get in, earn their credentials, earn their degrees, and go into the workforce. So one of the things that our executive leadership team did a year ago when my role shifted, before that, we hosted a career fair, we did flyers, we did a lot of the traditional things that career services offices do. And then we sat down together and said, well, how can we do this differently? How can we do this better? And most importantly, how can we best serve our students? And we said, instead of having these things, let's actually encourage them to participate in the experience. So my focus moved from a traditional career services focus into a work-based learning focus, where the main part of my role is to develop, grow, and maintain internship and apprenticeship opportunities for all our students, develop those across all of our majors, which we are in the process of doing, and then have it be centralized rather than decentralized. We have had a lot of success in that arena. I could probably talk about the next question. I'll talk about it right here. Last year, our internships grew 160%. We went from 49 students participating in paid work-based learning experiences to 129 students participating in paid work-based learning experiences. But even more importantly, our industry engagement moved from 5 industry partners to 17, and we are on track this year to continue that. So making it less about here's the resource and making it more about here's the tools that you need to do the work. And I will say that I do think, unlike a 4-year university, that community colleges are very uniquely positioned to do this work, because nobody's coming to a community college for Tiger State. They're coming to community college to get a job. And that is our job, is to develop our future workforce.
Well, just cleaning it up, let's talk about workplace learning. All right, so like thinking about kind of integrating workplace learning, or already looking at it, you're welcome to start to kind of think of what are the successes and challenges, have you experienced instilling quality paid work-based learning opportunity for all students, given that some degrees have this embedded and some do.
I like that you said all students, because that brings the equity question in the forefront. I'm gonna mainly use process technology as an example. If you're not familiar with what process technology is someone who is trained to be an operator, primarily in a petrochemical or an oil and gas plant. The majority of our internships are in energy sciences. Backing up from that, we've had a lot of success. What are the challenges? The challenges are, quite frankly, that student who has a 2.8, 2.75 GPA, and it may be because they're having to work 2 jobs to go to school. It may be because they're a single parent. There's lots of reasons. That is the challenge, because what happens is, let's say you have your pool of students, everybody wants the best 60 students. So that's super easy. For the rest of the students, it is providing those opportunities to them. And then, so it's a little bit of a dance, I'll say, between myself and faculty, with, they want all their internships to be this great, big, beautiful, and shiny thing. but also pursuing those internships within the field that may be more of a stepping stone to an operator role. It may be at a contract company instead of directly at a petrochemical facility, and having both the students and the faculty and everyone have that buy-in where all experiences are equal and meaningful and everyone's pathway looks different. That's probably been one of my biggest challenges. And also, having people think about this differently. Because we're creatures that have.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question. No, thank you for your comments, and that actually raised a lot of great discuss about. One of the questions that I'm having, as you talk about the paid internships, how do you do your performance appraisal, and then where do you force the loop on the performance appraisal piece, and then how do you leverage that to inform curriculum enhancements like design?
Yes, so in process technology, all students are required to take an internship course. They can take either an external internship course or an internal internship course. Because of our large number of majors in energy sciences, which now is approaching 500, they're not all going to have an external internship. So we'll talk about those that do have the external internship. So what we do is I sat down with the department chair and we wrote a midterm and a final evaluation. They're doing thought questions throughout, where they're writing a thought piece each week. The supervisor fills out a midterm evaluation, which gets turned back in, and then a final evaluation gets turned back in. At the end of that, this semester will be the first semester we're doing this piece. The lead instructor who teaches the course and myself are actually going to sit down with those students and have a career conversation. So what are the things that you learned? I'm in constant communication with all of the industry partners, which our students have internships at, and we'll get very granular. Joe's been coming to work late. Well, that might be a phone call from me. Sometimes I am calling the employer to say, hey, heard this was happening, what is going on? There's a lot of different pieces in that. So when we talk about FERPAs, we talk about MOUs. This is not just something that just poof happens. There is a ton of behind the scenes work. So that is how we do that. We also participate on our advisory panels as well. So everyone that we have an internship or apprenticeship program with serves on our advisory panel as well. And so the Dean of Energy Sciences and myself are in close collaboration, making sure that we are giving industry the students that they want, and we are best serving our students by giving them the jobs that really make generational change for them.
Okay.
No, thank you. And then for the broader question.
Wait, can you hold that? Can you hold your question one moment? Let's try and get through the work-based learning and then we'll take the question. Okay? I want to make sure we hear from Ms. again.
I think I'm gonna follow up with our other systems, if you wanted to, or some institutions, if you wanted to speak kind of from a work-based learning aspect.
I think work-based learning is variable at LSU by curriculum. Some have a required internship or a clinical practice or a residency, I think is what we're calling our student teaching, which I did a long time ago. And those things are, variable in terms of length and whether there's an industry assigned partner or a student has to go out and seek an opportunity. And some curriculums do not have that, but it's the culture of the kind of student population. So in engineering, we don't have a required internship for credit, but the culture of that college really is promoting students looking for and gaining internship experience while they're in the course. I think as a university, it's one of those things of like, there's not going to be work-based learning requirements across the board, that we have to be very creative in looking at ways for students to gain experience and career readiness skills. And I think we have the opportunity to leverage student employment across campus to be work-based learning or really a career-ready focused activity. And without intentionality, student employment is just someone showing up and doing their homework. But with intentionality, it can be a real developmental experience. And we can provide a lot of career readiness exercises or experience and we can have them reflect on them so they can learn to articulate that.
I also think we need to leverage like the co-curricular space as well, so student leadership, student organization participation. Students can use those experiences to develop some of these skills that we know are important and critical to the workforce. And then we need to talk about, maybe you can land that internship because you've got other things going on, but are you a volunteer at your church? Or you have a meaningful volunteer role. So if formal work-based learning can't be integrated into the curriculum, I think we do have opportunities to show students where they can gain these experiences and skills that they need to be competitive for the world of work.
Actually, Southern University and New Orleans students, it kind of just depends on the discipline or whatever, degree major. So, it varies based on the degree. However, we do have what students are required prior to graduation. They have to do, at least 31 hours of community, 60 hours, I'm sorry, of community service. So that's a type of learning, a work-based learning, because it is a requirement, prior to graduation. So even if they don't, within their discipline, have to, do work-based learning or internship, what have you, they are required to do community service hours, to fulfill that, that is, you know, that learning, if you will.
Okay, so just a quick survey, how many, true or false, is FranU only a healthcare institution? True or false?
I thought so.
Okay, good, okay, I thought some of you all would say true, but the challenge is helping employers to understand that we are not just a nursing school, that we have other programs on our college, on our university campus with students who possess great skills. And so we have to use our elevator pitch to get the employers to buy in so that we can scale our work-based program, because we do not have a lot of students employed, you know, for that are incentivized. However, I'm working on that program through Wolves at Work and building additional partnership. But that's my main challenge because, you know, we've been around for so many years, over 100 years. People only, you know, view us as a healthcare institution or a nursing school. So just making sure that the communication is clear, that we're not just a healthcare program, that we have students who are valuable in any in any industry.
At Southeastern, we have multiple different variations of everything you've heard already. In our college of business, college science and technology, they're mandatory. And mandatory to the paid perspective. They will not accept employers who do not pay. The choice to do an internship is up to the student. When it comes to certain programs, and in other programs, it's absolutely mandatory your senior year. Sometimes when it's mandatory, they also do not have access to paid internships. And so you have somebody that's working for a semester or 2 semesters for free, oftentimes having to leave another job that helps pay for their school to do so. And those are challenges that you were talking about. For me, when we talk about any type of experiential learning, it gets kind of stuck in the internship phase. I'm so happy that Jesse mentioned student jobs. There's so many student jobs on campus. In fact, I spoke at the La Custa meeting yesterday, or La Custa conference yesterday on just this topic. It's making meaningful work for students. How hard is it to do? You run an office like a real professional office. You give them real professional duties to do that tie directly, which is something that hasn't been said, ties directly to the skill sets that are needed by the student before they graduate. How many students are looking and searching for jobs in their freshman year as if they were seniors about to graduate? That's one of the exercises I love to have with students. Why? Because then we start looking at jobs. We start looking at what those responsibilities are. Do you like what this job offers? Granted, as Jesse said, you can't see everything. You can't, test drive a car just by looking at its price sheet or seeing what type of features it has. But you can start to understand, what does it take to be a graphic designer? What does it take to be a sales professional, right? And so by understanding those components, then we look at qualifications, because qualifications for us is where we start to build the student's roadmap. Well, actually, let me flip that, where we help the student build their own roadmap. Because if we build the roadmap for them, it's the same thing as a consultant telling you guys what to do and how to do it. It's their plan, not yours. And so it's understanding that's where those go. What skill sets do you need that oftentimes can translate to multiple different careers that you can gain in multiple different ways? So when we think about it, again, kind of putting internships today, we all know what they are. Jesse hit it again, structured internships. Kate said meaningful work and opportunity that looks the same. I've had students that have done an internship in one area, same company, one area versus another, one location versus another that had two completely different experiences. So that's us again, working hand in glove with our employers and saying, if you build something that is repeatable and something that we can make consistent, then the student knows exactly what they're going to gain when they go there. Same as the conversation I had with many different folks that are in student employment yesterday, which is how in-depth is the job description that you're creating? Are you putting skill-based learning that ties to the next core competencies? For those of you guys who aren't familiar with NACE, National Association of Careers and Employers, it's our nationwide industry association. And so it's understanding what are the skill sets that are not only needed today, but we know, and those of us who've been around a little longer really know, that the world is changing at a rapid pace. And skills that were necessary 3, 4, 5 years ago for a job now have changed because of AI, because of other things that are technologically based. And so it's understanding that they need to stay on top of that wave, stay on the crest of that wave. Again, it goes back to your original question, Lynn, about catching students when they're freshmen, catching them at the very beginning so that they can get on top of that crest. So that in their sophomore years, really where we're doing tremendous amounts of mapping and exploration and really starting to create, what's your roadmap? Where are you gonna go? Maybe you have 6, 7 doors that you wanna go into, that's fine. As long as we're starting kind of like a tree from the trunk and then working that outward. What are the transferable skills that you could get from different experiences such as clinicals, practicums, part-time jobs? Why can't part-time jobs be a big part of experiential learning? I know there's lots of students that have that experience and are able to tap into that. And the best part about it all, if you start young, go back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, the best part about starting young is they have time. If that job says you need 2 years graphic design experience, 2 years sales experience, 2 years whatever experience, if you start freshman, sophomore year, you've got the time to get it. If you start 2 weeks before graduation, you don't.
All right, so let's stay on the work-based learning, but talking about it at scale. So panelists, recommendations to our task force members. Okay, so thinking about Craig said, building that roadmap. Our goal, the charge of this particular task force is really embedding strong career counseling, work-based learning and career connected learning at our institutions, higher education institutions in Louisiana. What recommendations do you have to this task force to ensure that we get that done at scale? To build that roadmap at scale?
I'll start. We can't do this alone. That is the first thing. And one of the things that has helped us at River Parishes is building meaningful relationships with our industry partners. Having them not only be an advisory board just says some things, we might see them every 6 months. Having them in the classroom, having those relationships. So one of the things that we started on our Blackman campus this semester is an industry instructor program where Dow actually took some of their training leads and embedded teaching at River Parishes Community College as a part of their job description. So what advantage is that to us? Number one, those instructors are free to us. Number two, the bigger advantage to us is they are currently working in industry. So our students are learning the latest, the greatest things. How is that program structured? Well, it's structured in a lot of different ways. So they actually named an industry instructor liaison. And so the two of us, we're kind of each other's communication pieces. We talk about that. And that's not just something that we have with Dow. When Dow developed this in conjunction with us, the purpose was that we could scale this to other industry partners. When we look at the amount of industry that is coming into our state today, And in 2 years, we're not gonna have we always talk about the workforce. We know the workforce problem. Who's gonna teach that work? That's a huge problem as well. And so by partnering with industry in this way, it creates a real win-win. So we have developed that roadmap, if you will. And also being in the classroom, engaging with our industry partners in smaller ways as well. Shell just came and had a career, we called it a career chat, and that's exactly what it was. It was a career chat. It was our early students learning about different types of careers. How do you apply for an internship at Shell? When is that internship opportunity? And really, I think to do this at scale, you've got to have somebody, preferably a team, preferably not one person, that this is their main role, because it cannot be an add-on to, you're running a whole career services office and have it as an add-on. As far as the resume help and all of the traditional things, one of the things that we do is partner with industry to come into the classroom. How better than H&R Block to come into a beginning accounting class and talk about what they want to see on a resume than Kate Whitehead going in there. I know a lot about resumes, but I'm not the one that's going to be hiring. So I think really having those partnerships has made the difference for us.
I think this task force has a monumental task because you're gonna make recommendations that you want higher ed to institute, and we are vastly different places. What is gonna work for Kate is gonna look very different at LSU. And so I think, giving that some thought of like, how do we set some kind of frameworks or some objectives that then campuses can write and submit individual plans that align with their scope, scale, mission, and things like that. And focusing on the like integration and embedding kind of thing that we've talked about. So what are the like key points? Is that what are the ways campuses are going to embed or integrate career readiness into every year of the college experience? And then let the campus submit here's what this would look like at LSU, here's what this could look like, and here's the resources we might need for that. Because I think that's just a reality, to say, we're going to have industry teach class for every institution and every discipline. Well, that might not work very well, right? And so I think everybody here is really excited about the opportunities. And one of the kind of pieces that make us like prick up and kind of stand up is like, are we gonna be told to implement something that doesn't make sense at all for my campus? And I know that's not the goal at all, but I think we gotta really keep that in mind when making recommendations of like, how do we make this broad enough or make it a framework where the campus can meet the intent of it in the context of that campus and that environment? And I agree, understanding the dynamics of each institution. For instance, Southern University of New Orleans, our low-hanging fruit probably is most of your non-traditional students. So many of them are already within the workforce, and they may have stopped out as it relates to college and had families, and now they're looking to go back into the workforce, making more pay, if you will. So I think being able to develop a framework that works, as Kate said, for each institution, so it will look vastly different. Southern University of New Orleans as well as Southern University, Shreveport, Baton Rouge, because of the dynamic of students that we actually serve in each institution. So the question was asked whether or not some industries or universities are bent towards certain industries, and then we have to have some industries that are bent toward certain institutions based on what that need is for that institution, of that industry leader, and which campus or university can provide that need or that talent, if you will.
Okay. I have some different ideas that we can do this. They're going to be a little bit off the wall, but again, if you go through the history of academics, at the university level, back to the early 1800s, there has been change over time, and change is caused by different shifts in population, different shifts in, folks coming back from war, World War II GI Bill, Civil Rights Movement. There's been tremendous shifts all over, and now we have a shift. And so we're looking at this with a different perspective. As a person who loves strategic planning, this is something that speaks to me. Integrating career readiness into accreditation. I know our governor is looking at accreditation models right now and changes in accreditation. And so while some have it and some don't, what if it was embedded throughout? What about more industry association involvement on campus? As Jesse just said, it would be wonderful if we could have, an engineer come and speak to every class, and we have lots of that already occurs on campus. But where the rubber meets the road a lot of times is student involvement, right? If I'm just in one class, well, what happens if I oversleep? What happens if I miss that class? Then I miss that whole lesson. But we have for example, Society Human Resource Manager, the number one human resource industry association in the country. They're on the campus. How do we get more of those folks to integrate? How do we get more of those folks to engage? They're in every region. They're in every area. But it's low-hanging fruit. It's easy opportunity. In addition, obviously, in a lot of places, embedded career competencies in general education and major specific curriculum. At Southeastern, within our College of Honors and Excellence, we've started to do that in embedding the NAICS core competencies into those classes so that students don't just take a class, especially in a Gen Ed class, and say, okay, well, this is a blow-up. You're going to go do bowling or something. No, now they're looking at it and saying, I'm going to learn these specific skill sets, more often than soft skill sets, leadership, conflict resolution, teamwork, things like that, that they can do right there in the classroom. Again, what about, we're talking about employers. And coming from that end of the table, I understand what it's like to be there. And if somebody said the word placement to me when I was in the professional world, I would laugh at it. Because you're not going to place anybody with me. They're going to go through a hiring process. And we short students if we try to place them somewhere. And we also could create equity issues. But what if, and this is really a little bit out there, what if we offered tax or wage subsidies to employers who brought in internships? True, meaningful internships. What if we incentivize different departments, incentivize universities for the work that they do? You want to talk about kind of out of the box thinking, that's a little bit out of the box. But maybe it would wake up certain industries to look at internships in a whole different light and say, wow, this isn't just free labor for me, which is some of the phone calls I've had with different businesses and told them that we're not looking to offer free labor. That's not what we're here to do. If they're going to come into your business and make a positive impact on your income, then why shouldn't you make more of a positive impact on theirs? It's not big dollars, it's small dollars. Just give me 1 second, let me hit a few more things. Establish regional career partnership companies. It's not hard to do. Again, I'm thankful that y'all are shining the light on us. I'm thankful that we're getting this much notice at this time, because it's brought more of us closer together as well. The 2 years, the 4 years, the private institutions, the public institutions, because we're talking about this and locking arms and saying, hey, how do we continue to be part of the solution? We know we do it each and every day, but how do we take it even further and do more? And then again, requiring career exploration early on in the college experience and doing things like that can help students think about this more intentionally. And that's a word that I've heard go many times across the table, and it's one of my favorites. It's being intentional in everything that we do. Being intentional in the work that we're doing and in the collaborative partnerships that we're doing from the state level down, as well as looking at the different systems that exist in our state, sitting at this table, and then at the ground floor level, what we're doing and how we're sharing resources. Because again, I'm also thinking, because you did bring a little challenge up and scale, and I'm also thinking about a lot of our institutions that are one-person operations. Think about that. One-person operations, all of the things that you've heard, the events that we put on, the things that we do, one-person operation, and they're doing that. And these aren't 40-hour week jobs. I mean, for many of us, they're like 50, 60 and more. And it's not on the clock hours. It's beyond that. But it's because we're so passionate about the work that we do and our desire to help our state elevate and grow, and to help our students in our state elevate and grow and become the next level of professional and the people that are going to take our state to the next level. Cruz, that's out to you.
Yeah, question. But two-fold question. Number one, talk about tough accountability earlier. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. It's all right. I'm going to age myself right now. I'm 51 years old. I came up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If you didn't show up to something, It's your problem. If you made a mistake, you're gonna pay the piper, right? A lot of that doesn't happen now. And again, I can say the words, oh, well, everybody gets a trophy when they're young. And understand, I have college age kids. I have one that's 17 and one about to turn 20 at the end of this school year. I understand what we're talking about. I understand the perspective of a parent. I understand the perspective from a business person. I understand the perspective as a college employee. But it's about students owning this opportunity. And one of the things that I see often, and being a person that spent a lot of his life in developing other people, is that students come expecting to be handed something. It's constant. What do you have for me? What is the incentive for me to come to your table? What's the incentive for me to come to your event? What is the incentive for me? Instead of looking in the mirror and saying, what's the incentive for me to show up at that event? What is the incentive for me to go do an internship? What is the incentive for me to go get a student job instead of going to do something else that night? What is the incentive for me in taking ownership of their career, taking ownership of your work? It goes back to what I was talking about earlier. When students come out of high school and go into the military or into a job or something specific, they have to own that. But when they come into educational institutions, it's almost, some of them still carry over a little bit of high school and that need that somebody else is going to do it for me. And I'm not going to do it for myself. And I'm going to be placed somewhere and I don't have to do it for myself. It's nothing negative against this generation. Today, I work with this generation. I love it. And I often, you're not a student worker, you are a part-time staff member. You have a title. You are important and you have responsibilities. And if you don't do those responsibilities, it hurts the team. Sound familiar? Sounds exactly like what it's like to work in the corporate world. And that's done intentionally, to use that phrase again. And so it's helping them to understand that these are opportunities for you and you have to take responsibility if you want to get more. Quick example, I have a young man that started as one of our first front office specialists. He's a marketing major. Short young guy. Came to us 2 years ago. About 6 months in, he said, I see what the graphic designers are doing in the back of the office. Because we have graphic designers in our office too. And he's like, I want to add those tools to my toolbox. That's some of the language we use in our office. Tools to the toolbox, right? And I said, great, show me your one. And so what he did, started doing extra work. Started, as he finished his primary duties and moved on to his secondary or tertiary duties, he started to spend more time in that to understand why they did what they did, going out and talking to students, because everything that is designed from our office is designed for students, by students, so that it speaks their language, right? And so he did all those things, brought t-shirts out, and saw which logos different students like better than others. Again, it's being out there and enjoying the work. And he earned his spot in the back. So for the past year and a half, that's what he's been doing, is learning how to graphic design. And now he's graduating in 2 months, and he's ready. He's already out there working, talking to companies. He's already started interviewing. He has taken control of his situation and is making it work for him. That's what I need. By owning, that's what I need by individual accountants.
And then the other piece, when we're talking about tax credit, do you think that it needs to be some campus scale so that we have more career service professionals there? Because I know the information to this, but I'm just saying out loud, because that's what I'm scared of, especially in my institution. I mean, we have an outstanding director of career, but don't get me wrong, right? But I'm worried that we're gonna come out with all this great policy, and so you dump on somebody, and I think the other side has that class. So what are we gonna do as a task force that's gonna incentivize actual investment in the universities, beef up the career services there, so we're actually serious? That's what I'm working.
And Cruz, I'll pay you later for that comment. We talked about it earlier, because we do have to do more. Like, and I'm not naive enough to think that every college on our campus wouldn't like more money, that every office on our campus couldn't do more with some more resources. You know, I get that. I fully understand, and that's with everybody. The collaborations are important. Collaborations across campus are absolutely vital. You're right. Your director is spectacular. She busted like many of the rest of us do, and then some, because she's a one-person show. But it's understanding, how do we collaborate better with our deans, with our department heads, with our faculty? getting into the classroom, I love getting into the classroom. There's no place I enjoy being more than in front of students and working on stage. In fact, one of the things I love to do most is RCCs, or random career conversations, where I just bounce across campus, getting away from the computer and the work that I'm doing, and just engaging with the students sitting by themselves. I'm so usually on a clinical stage there. It's getting out there and meeting with people and shaking hands and doing it. But you're right. What does this model look like? And that is a little bit concerning, right? What type of initiatives? Are we painting with a broad brush, or are we painting with a fine brush? Or are we trying to create something for all students, or are we trying to create something that meets the individual student needs? Because we do have different demographics and dynamics all across campus. But again, collaborations are going to be vitally important. At the end of my survey, one of the things I said, which is something I said when I was given the opportunity to open and run cafeterias on the North Shore. Let me show you what I did with very little, and you'll want to give me more. That's what it's about. You're seeing, and again, you're just seeing raw data and things like that. Come to our campuses. I was talking to one of our economic development people the other day. Come to our campus. We want you there. We want industry associations there. We want employers, not just to come to career fairs, but that's where the true rubber meets the road. But we want them to come to meet and greets with our faculty. Because if they're engaging with faculty, what happens? Then faculty knows what's happening in industry. Industry can then share, hey, this is what's coming down the road. We sure, I saw MMR's doing a big expansion in Lafayette. Or Kim's right there. In Lafayette, hey, we want to know about that. MMR's doing that. Are there any extra special skill sets or things that we need to be preparing for today that maybe the employer's going to need in 2 years? When Medline moved in our backyard, or Matron and Intralink, same thing. It's understanding what industry needs. And the more that industry is on campus, the better off we all are. All of us, and that's everybody in this room, because our students are going to learn more, because they're going to hear it from more than just your career services professional, from more than just your faculty member. They're going to hear it from somebody who's actually doing the work. And for those of you who have kids, you will understand. At a certain point, your voice is a little bit numb in your kids' ears. What you tell your students, the minute then they hear it from me at orientation, all of a sudden they're saying, "Did you hear that, Mom? Right? Did you hear that, Dad?" And the parents are looking at them like, "I've been telling you that for the last 3 years," right? So we have to understand that too. So those collaborations are going to be vitally important. But again, it's using our resources smartly. It's understanding that we can't take everything, but the more that we're provided, the more we want to show, and so that comes back to the scale piece. I don't want AI advising us. Let's see what AI tries to us. I had a student not long ago that brought a resume to me that said they were a Black Belt in Six Sigma. I'm serious. And I looked at it. And then so I put my employer hat on, and I said, "So tell me about your Black Belt in Six Sigma. I want to learn all about that. That's special. That's an unbelievable designation." Great. Had we been in a real interview, I would have thrown that young man out. I'm serious. And then I would have called up other partners of mine and said, "Hey, watch out for this guy. He's trying to pass off, bogus qualifications." It's dangerous what students can do with AI. So we've got to be smart. We've got to, and I know they're putting together different things with AI and things like that, but it's in the things that we do and in the tools that we bring on campus, we want them to use these things smartly. Things that aren't going to hurt them, because that's something that can damage a student for a lot of years, and it's dangerous. And so it's understanding that scale, it's understanding those different components, and then moving things forward. I take it up enough time.
I want to make sure that we have time for some questions of the task force. Before we move to the task force, I didn't know if you wanted to close it out for registration.
They actually mentioned everything, so I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge this may be a part 2 early 2026, because I know we have lots more that we can engage.
Yeah, keeping on the topic of,
Both of you, you can go in.
okay. Keeping on the topic of collaboration, how can student leaders partner with the Career Center to better, just promote the services that you offer? We are the voices for students, so we want to make sure that their needs are met and not also from you, because we don't want students to struggle, and we want students to know about these resources. So how can we help you?
I'm sorry. I've never played, but
I just want to affirm the work that you're doing already, because I believe you mentioned that there's a collaboration at LSU with SGA, and that's a huge component, right? So to drive my activities on campus, that's my key partner. Making sure that the students are advocating and being, you know, a point of marketing for my department. I'm a one-person department. It's a lot. So the collaboration, you know, for events such as our career fair, we're trying to make sure the students are engaged, because we know that student engagement can be very low. So doing a soft poll with the students, what would you like to see at the career fair, other than the traditional fair, as Kate mentioned? And of course, what do they say? Food, t-shirts, right? That's going to draw them. So of course, you know, I partner with SGA to sponsor a food truck, right? So however, you know, your mission and your vision aligns for your organization, you know, the two collaborate with career services and just see what events can be produced from both of those goals and just move forward in it. That's my advice.
Anybody else?
I think as a former student leader and someone who's seen student leaders for years, you have tremendous power in your voice, and not just with other students, but to administrators. So I think if you're seeing things that you're like, we need this, like to be able to articulate that and help the administration or deans, right? Like I think about college councils and like, what do they feel like is missing in their college from a support or career readiness, and how maybe that exists and they don't know and it's just education, or maybe there's some, how do we make this more ingrained in our college or things like that. So I think some of this is understanding where are the opportunities, and then how can the student leaders advocate for those opportunities in institutional structure, in addition to, right, like the amplifying the voice of what's already coming out of the resources. So, you know, resharing stuff on social or your own messaging campaign and things like that are always helpful, but always think about student leadership is a short piece of time to really implement some changes. And those all need to be aligned, right? We don't want to implement change, but what are those things that student leaders can kind of move the needle on by advocating for the broad student population?
One more question? Are you any questions?
Oh, no.
You good? All right.
I may have.
All right, one more question.
I was just gonna say, in my pre-LED life, working in university, one of the things that, the continuing students don't know what it looks like to do a job. And of course, internships is one of the ways, but one of the great other ways to engage industry, and as I always say, help them fall in love with students in a different way, is to give students for the faculty that are open to it. And I know that's a whole separate conversation, but to have, case studies, to have problems that they're working on, so they see what they're actually, the kinds of things they'll be working on every day in choosing this career path, that students want to see what they're going to be doing. What does that look like? They want to solve problems. What kind of problems will they be solving? And I think wherever our career centers can work with our business partnerships, can work with our faculty on that as intermediaries to try to have that actual problem solving, active case touching things, then industry can actually get some feedback from some of the young folks in a different way on that, and students have a chance to type real problems. It all starts making more sense in their path. So I've always been a huge supporter of that, and that's something that all of us play a part in.
Yeah, I think some disciplines do that better than others. Like I think about our analytics curriculum, they always have a project component that comes from industry and they produce, or public relations, and things like that. So the key is how do we get it into places where there's nonlinear, where there's not an obvious, right? I'm a general business major.
give me a case there, right, rather than a PR, right, very specific. And so it doesn't mean it's not possible. We just have to think it's not as obvious and there are real opportunities.
That goes from general business and that's where you introduce them.
Right.
We get out with the general business degree, what does that mean? What's
Right.
that mean for you? So let them try on an accounting thing, let them try on a finance issue, let them try on a risk management issue.
Right.
Whatever else that looks like, and I think that's another way to be introducing career paths into those less linear paths.
Yeah, agreed. And it shows people, especially with liberal arts degrees and those more general paths, the diversity of opportunities that they have that they may not consider.
Or opportunities they don't have.
Right.
Great.
All right, well, please join me in a huge thank you. I know we have
Well, thank you to our panelists and thank you to Melinda for moderating that great conversation. As the folks kind of make their way away from the table, we're rounding third here. So our next agenda item that's going to highlight effective career advising, non across the nation, and certainly can learn from a lot of good work that's happening from our peer states around the nation. So we're grateful that our partners from Strata are going to provide some information related to that. So happy to welcome Dr. Melissa Levin, our Vice President of Quality Coaching, Post-Secondary Education, and Kevin Morab, who's Vice President of Work-Based Learning. So I will begin before you all.
not Belinda, Belinda has.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just start with the intro minutes, just, and talk back to follow. Absolutely, amazing panel. I think a lot of the things that we'll be talking about will be, reflecting back to, great institutions represented here. So we'll get through, I'm Melissa Levin, quality, coaching VP at Strata. Quality coaching, when we use that phrase at Strata, it's really kind of a broad term meant to encompass all of the resources, support services, guidance, everything is in the curriculum, everything that really comes together to support students in making that successful education career transition.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Grove, Vice President of Work-Based Learning. You have heard a lot about work-based learning. I don't think I can do it any better than what was already given. I'll just add that prior to joining Strata about 7 months ago, I was once the director of career services office. So that was just a joy fest for me here on my conference. So I'm happy to share some more about what we're learning at Strata on the national level about work-based learning, how to embed it, how to scale it, and things that we're seeing be working in other states and institutions.
Okay.
Oh, it's working.
Oh, that's very cool. Yes. Okay, so we have to slide. So, real quickly, just a little overview of how we're going to approach this. We are so there's this opportunity. We invited you to share a little bit about effective career advising. And kind of synthesize some of a lot of what we've learned. We both have a really great role of being able to partner with institutions and systems and support and learn along some great levels happening. So I'm going to try and take this from sort of a high level to a kind of medium level, then to get really specific into some practices. So I'll start by talking about the education and career guidance principles. Okay. Well, then I might be.
Yep. I don't know what's going on, so apologies.
Yeah, they've been there. Just a bit.
Is this the slide one?
This is the one.
Okay. Sorry.
And I know that these probably look very familiar, so I'll just touch on them briefly. I think that my colleague who joined you all in July talked through these education career guidance principles. But I'll start by talking about these really briefly, then try to get into practices and show students talk through some practices that really bring these principles to life, and then talk about some specific institutional examples. So on these guiding principles, I won't walk through them one by one, just as kind of a refresher. These were created by an advisory group that Strata convened. The advisory group brought together higher ed leaders, practitioners, researchers, folks in the workforce development space, intermediaries. And we asked all these people the same question: what are really the essential components or ingredients that students need to make that successful transition from education into career? So I'll just highlight a few that I think are gonna kind of underscore and echo things that we've already talked about today, and will kind of set us up for some of the examples that we'll walk through. I think it was Jesse who kept saying embedded and integrated. I was like, yes, like that is, I think at the heart, those phrases, those ideas are at the heart of a lot of these. So I'll just highlight with that first principle, centered on education to career outcomes. That hyphenate phrase is really the key part there, which is just really signaling that academic and career are integrated. Academic planning happens alongside career exploration as students are making decisions about majors and other kinds of pathway planning. They're really doing so with their career goals in mind. That foundational and universal principles, or the other word for that, I would say, is embedded, and just making sure, as we've talked so much about today already, making sure that the career guidance finds students and that it's really, it's where students are and it's really integrated in embedded with these core experiences that students are having. Informed by data and evidence, that last piece, that can mean a lot of different things. But one element that we kind of rely on into our advisory group and that's got us put some focus and attention on is thinking about the kinds of information that students need and really being able to support students and institutions in having access to labor market information. So as they're thinking about what do I want to do, what's my career goal, what are my interests, students are really doing so sort of within the context of knowing that that career opportunity may be with those learning trajectories. So happy to go more into those, and of course, please just shout, speak up with questions, but let's go to the next one for now. Thank you. Okay, so this is moving from principles into practices. So what you're seeing on there is a synthesis of what a lot of the research tells us and a lot of what Kevin and I have learned from the work that we do and being able to see great career advising, career navigation, work-based learning models in action. So I'll walk through each of these, and there's some links on the slide too for more information on sources and more specific data points. The first one that you see there is sort of, as it says, the ingredients. So we'll talk through what are these key pieces coming together, and then the others really touch on how we provide how you provide advising and these practices. So those key ingredients: advising, information, reflection, and network building. And I'll walk through each of those quickly. The advising is so much of what we've already talked about today, being able to provide students with that support, that guidance to help them understand how do you think about your academic pathway in relation to your career goals. How do you know about the opportunities that are out there? Sean was talking, it really resonated with me. You might know the field you want to go into, but what are the opportunities for jobs? So being able to provide that through advising and walking students through that process. Information really closely tied to there. How are students kind of getting the knowledge that they need in order to make these decisions? So thinking about labor market information, other kinds of information. So they're really making these decisions grounded in a good sense of how they can pursue this pathway. Reflection, we talked a lot about accountability. There's a principle that we have called driven by student agency, all kind of the same idea, but it's not just about what students are receiving, of course, in terms of the advising, the information, but also the reflection and making sure that students go through that process and are supported in that process, sort of recognizing like, here's what I enjoy doing, here's what I've learned. I can think about how to share that with an employer. I can think about maybe that helps me think about my academic pathway in a different way. There's that reflection component, and then network building. It's all about social capital, a role for career advising, career guidance to help students build those relationships. They're going to be so key to their career development. So ways to provide those, I'll walk through these kind of quickly. So prioritizing advisory interactions and using tech. It's really a both and that we've found from a lot of the institutions that we've worked with. A lot of what the research says, that one-on-one advising, meeting the relationship with the career counselor, the advisor, the coach is always so critical. But we talked about today already, kind of that issue of scale and how do you reach students and reach students with some kind of baseline of the kind of advising and information that's going to support them. So tech is a tool there to help scale, expand access, maybe using the tech to focus on a piece of information, using the tech to have like some kind of response to a student and creating a question, and hopefully, certainly not a 40-hour a week job, but hopefully focus on those offline at 3 a.m. answering these questions. There's an instruction element too. So there's these skills that students, that there's a role for advising, really helping students understand how do you find where the job ads are? How do you read a job listing and understand like where's the key information that you're looking for in terms of where is the job? What is it relevant at the time? All those pieces. So an element there of instruction. Students making sure that students understand it and how you do all these sorts of gestures, skills. engaging students, these one-on-one relationship meetings we've talked about are really effective, but the research also tells us that group advising in group settings can be just as effective too, particularly if they are structured around specific activities. So for instance, maybe a peer group or another kind of course or something like that as a setting for instance, teaching some of these career exploration and job skills. And then we've talked about that last one quite a bit, talking about sort of targeting career advising for navigation to where the student is in the journey. And this is always something that we think a lot about, and good questions have come up today, like how do you have some standardized practices with room for variation, and that comes into the student level as well too. So thinking about how to personalize. So let's go, in the interest of time, let's go 2 slides ahead. So now I'm going to do the principles, the practices really quick. I'm going to share some examples of how this works with institutions. So what I've done is pulled examples from some of the institutions that I have the privilege of currently working with on some career guidance and career navigation projects. The slide I skipped over has an overview of the models that they are implementing at their institutions. So more info there, but I think I'll just jump in to the examples. And what I've done too, so you'll see the headings on the slides. I tried to link this back to some of the things that are coming up in the survey. So kind of trying to reflect back again, hoping to sort of pick up the thread of the conversations that have already been starting today. A lot of this is again going to reflect back things that we've heard, things that I've been learning from you all today. We've talked a lot about how to get that early exposure to career advising approaches for how to do it. I wouldn't walk through these examples personally, I learned that. But there we talked about sort of the freshman learning experience, the freshman learning community. We've talked about tying some requirements around career advising for exploration. For instance, we have one institution who is tying students having to take a look at labor market information or having access to labor market information as a requirement for declaring a major. We talked a little bit about career assessments, interest assessments. We have an institution that requires the students to like bring that completed assessment to our first advising meeting, and the advisor is prepared to talk to them about that. So in the blue boxes on the slide, we've got just like some observations of like, I think this is what makes it work so well at these institutions. So one thing that we see with this early exposure to career advising is like rinse and repeat, like these students are getting these touch points throughout different elements of their first year experience or even performance certificate. And then those same kinds of resources and guidance and information is repeated and reinforced through different kinds of experiences. Now let's go to the next slide. So just collecting some examples here on how to embed career advising across campus. There's many ways to do this. I focused on just highlighting the examples of how to get it into the coursework. And just at a sort of high level to what we've seen are kind of 2 approaches to doing that. One is in a specific kind of career readiness course, often in the first year, but can be later in the student's journey as well. The other option is to designate that specific course within the major within the program as a career designation course, and happy to get into more examples of how we've seen that work or sort of weighing those options. Things that we've seen about how it works well. Getting faculty buy-in is a big piece of that. There's ways to do that, sort of identifying the faculty champions, letting them kind of be sort of the source of knowledge and even training on how to do this. Also making it as easy for faculty as possible. So we work with institutions that have ready-made course modules, syllabi templates, things that faculty, when they are on board and bringing this career work into the coursework, that they're having that support, being able to do that kind of in a seamless way as possible. Let's go to the next slide. I think it's probably the last one that I'll touch on, and then I'll hand it over to Kevin. But we've talked a lot about increasing student participation, and I love the health center analogy to how to make it kind of not seem like the health center, but something that students should be that core element of the student experience. So some of the things we've already talked about, bringing career advising into the curriculum, into other experiences, is a key piece of that. We work with institutions too that make sure every student facing support person is trained as some career advising providers and officers, whether it's success coach, academic advisor, others, and that I think falls into the like doing more with less or doing more with the same and trying to get that to the and we've also seen institutions that have some incentives for students to come on into the career center. You want the career advising to reach students, but you also probably want to give them reason to come on field and thinking again about how that can really align with what students are doing in your fields or what they're trying to, these professional experiences that they're trying to develop. We're going to go ahead and skip the next one because we talked quite a bit about, this one's about interesting things, because we have a bit about that, but actually, this is the best segue to hand it over to my colleague, Kevin.
Great, thanks, Melissa. So I know that a major part of the conversation today and a major part of the task force's charge is to scale work-based learning, to think about it being much more prevalent practice among students, and that is very much what Strata also hopes for as well. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that we're learning about taking work-based learning to scale. And some of the pieces of sort of the architecture that might be put in place and the way that people are starting to address this to help it reach scale. So the first thing I'd say is, if I had to put it in the crudest fashion, it really comes down to pay and supply in many cases. So the pay issue is there are unpaid or low-paying internships. There are unpaid and required, often clinical student teaching experiences, things that are great and may be embedded or maybe a good part of the experience, but can create a lot of access issues for people that just frankly can't afford to have their pay. They cannot make that work because they're already working significantly, or that's just not something that's within their means to basically figure out how to afford their life while they're doing something that is unpaid. So pay is certainly a part of the equation that's challenging in some of those cases. And then there's the supply issue. Frankly, there are just not enough work-based learning opportunities for all the students that would want one. And those things fall into some of the categories that listed here: apprenticeships, internships, co-ops, undergraduate research experience. I mean, we find this over and over in national surveys, and certainly among Strata's surveys, that we have a lot more students who say they want one of these kinds of experiences than students that actually do by the time they finish. And part of that is we need to think about how can we get more employers off the sidelines to offer these things? How can we incentivize our institution partners to create those collaborative opportunities for those things to exist? So where work-based learning is, especially where it's not required or part of the culture of that school, we heard our first services folks talk about the culture of that school, very internship or co-op focused. You know, that's where increasing supply is really critical, right? Because those students are certainly going to need many chances to get there. And one thing I'll mention about this, where's Craig? Craig mentioned something about wage subsidies and tax incentives. We're actually, Strata is I am very deeply involved working with the state of Virginia, who does have a wage subsidy program for particularly small to mid-sized employers. Their categorization is 150 employers or less, and they offer wage subsidies to those employers who employ Virginia students in paid internships. So that could be a whole other presentation, I think, which we're not going to do today because it's already 3 o'clock. You've all been sitting here patiently listening to everything, including me. But would love to talk with you all about that as sort of all the things we're learning and all the ways that we're supporting Virginia in crafting what that looks like to make it work. So you can go to the next slide. The other thing that's really important, and we sort of touch on that a little bit in the where work-based is required, where it's not as thinking about this by discipline, thinking about it as a discipline and industry-specific endeavor. So if we think about, and I'm just going to paint this very broadly, but it's imperfect. I want to acknowledge your business, your computer science, your engineering focused disciplines. They are often more likely the types of students participate in internships or co-ops, and they are most likely to be paid because the types of industries that they go and work into are for-profit organizations that typically have that capacity to do it. So there's certainly a supply issue there. But that is more likely where you're going to see students participating in paid internships and co-ops. In your biologies, liberal arts, social sciences, psychologies, you might more often see those students participating in things like undergraduate research, which is quite significant, especially in the sciences, or in internships, but sometimes those things are unpaid. So there we may have a supply and a pay issue, and sometimes that's because of the sort of types of roles that those students might pursue, and they're nonprofits, and they might not pay or they have low pay, but that's sort of a thing you might find in that trend of that sort of discipline. And then finally, just again, broadly, education and health professions, you typically have some form of required clinical practicum something, and that can be paid or unpaid. It seems to be trending off that it is continuously unpaid, but there are lots of people experimenting with how do we get pay into it. You talked about that there's some work in the state to do that, which I think is wonderful. So, and as I hear about our wonderful colleagues talk about, there needs to be some frameworks and acknowledge the institutional context for plans that can be made. Thinking about it in a discipline-specific kind of way may be helpful, right? Because the type of work-based learning that a school or institution might need to promote more may be dependent on the types of disciplines it has the heaviest enrollment, or the types of workforce that's very local to their region, right? That's going to give them the most opportunity to develop that kind of work-based learning experience. So these are the sorts of things that can be nuanced and scaled, is looking at what's the model of work-based learning that's gonna be able to be scaled given the context. So we'll go to the next slide, and just give you a couple examples of ways that we've seen some folks address this, the issues with pay and supply. So one is right here in Louisiana, that's Tulane University, which I'm guessing most of you heard about. They raise some significant money that will help students get into paid internships. Tulane is not alone in the country in having or generating a fund that will enable the institution itself to give money to students, give money to organizations to make sure that those experiences are free. So that is one way that is being addressed, is institutions having funds to essentially make small grants to students to cover expenses for an unpaid or very low paid experience. Pennsylvania, as a state, Governor Shapiro has put forth a budget that's actually double the previous budget to pay student teachers and pay the mentor teachers in the school districts who are taking on the work of supervising that student teacher, so that experience, that work-based experience, becomes then paid. And it acknowledges the labor of the person who's managing that person, right, and taking that on, which is, when we talk with employers across the field, that's sort of one of the hiccups and the challenges is like the person who's doing the work of supervising that person takes on an extra role, right? How do we make sure that that person is fairly acknowledged what that is? We'll go to my last slide, 253, okay, we're trying. So a couple of things about sort of, and again, our panel did a wonderful job highlighting the need for collaboration. A couple of things I mentioned here about collaboration. I'll start on the right. EAB, I think, has a pretty great piece on essentially managing industry partnerships at institutions, and it accounts for lots of different institution types and ways that that might be done. Because what is interesting about industry partnerships is they take a lot of different forms, and it is a surprisingly permeable boundary between the institution and industry. Individual faculty have relationships with alumni or friends, or people who are in their industry. The career services offices often have relationships with industry, of course, but many people touch industry. So to have sort of an all-in effort on how do we, as an institution, work with industry to think about talent needs as one part of our engagement with them is critical. And then I'll mention the University of Mary Washington, which I think is doing something quite interesting. They are an institution in Virginia, where our goal from the state is to have every student participate in a paid internship or other form of work-based learning. And they are looking at, actually, they're going to do, the registrar is going to embed in course registration every semester questions for students about whether or not they participated in work-based learning. And what that will enable them to do then is target the students who haven't yet had work-based learning. So it's not we know at graduation they didn't have one, but we can do nothing about it. Right now, it's a leading indicator semester by semester to think about this as an institutional resource issue, not a survey, right? Where do we spend our institutional resources on the students who haven't yet done one? And we can tell who they are. Now, course registration is not an easy process to change, what I acknowledge, so I don't think these questions are going to be huge. It's at least going to give them a place to start, and it gives them that baseline. Where are we beginning from, right? We want it to scale, but who needs it, right? And when do they need it? So some of these ways that people are thinking about that baseline and then starting to think about what counts, right, as work-based learning, are doing some interesting things to help enable the path to scale and build that path to scale. Oh my God. Okay, 2:55. So we'll pause.
I'll just highlight, I will pause in a second.
Oh, pause.
No, we are good, so, okay, we have an appendix slide, and this is just a resource that we put together, and it's essentially what I know that you all are going to put together the draft of the plan. We put together something that essentially just has sort of action items, things to have in place, practices to think about incorporating at the state's institution level. So we'll sure. We know where to find us, but just want to do the last step and do the step as well, but hopefully even there.
Yeah, just a quick comment for the benefit of the task members. I know it was brought up twice about the incentives for employers that do want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, particularly Adam championing the work-based learning tax credit that passed this previous legislative session. So we do have something on the books now at Department of Revenue. I think it's still working on the rules to incentivize employers to offer these paid work-based learning. Great.
And Mark, just to be clear, I'm not sure it covers 4-year or 2-year students. It does cover some kids up to 24 years old. It was really built around a K-12 consideration and a pathway of some students re-entering education who have fallen out of education to have a work-based incentive. it would be something to consider a more specific recommendation on how to potentially make sure it aligns to higher education students. So.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you all for your presentations. It's been fantastic. So I'm gonna push us along in the interest of time, bring home minute. Any public comment? Did anyone sign up for public comment? No public comments. Okay, so I want to make sure that we highlight the upcoming meetings. So we have you scheduled for 2026. You're not getting away from us. We're making sure that you have on your calendar the upcoming meetings. As was mentioned, we have an interim report that's due. So we're going to be seeking some information and thoughts from you around recommendations. Broaden team has a slide that'll be shared, an email out to Lynn, also asking for your thoughts and ideas, so that we can collectively have all of those as a starting point for the conversation for the interim report. And what you want to see additional research, additional presentation on as we move to the full report in 26. So just wanted to put that on your radar as well. I want to, of course, give a shout out to Tristan, because I don't know very many people who you say, what do you want to do for your birthday? He says, a career alignment task. So, thank you for that, Tristan. Senator Edmonds had to step out, but you know, Senator Edmonds, Representative Freiberg have been champions for this work and really saw the need for us to try to knit together this education to employment conversation in a more intentional way. And so that's why we do the work that we do, and certainly appreciate my chair who's here and the phenomenal panel. We're so excited to hear from each and every one of you. So with that, I will see if there is a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to leave, huh?
So moved.
Motion by Adam, a second. A second by Caleb. Any opposition? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you again.
Kim Carver. And I think you're a.
Yeah.